podcast.
Here we go. Hello, around the block and around the world. This is where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. My name is Dobie Maxwell, representing type 2, representing type 1, the vivacious, the effervescent, the always in the know, Sammy Parker. We'll get to Sammy in seconds, but first, this episode of Just My Type, the Diabetes Podcast, sponsored by the Diabetes app, a free social community app that brings together both type 1 and type 2 diabetics, plus their supporters. Find community, resources, and Sammy and I on the Diabetes app. Sammy, once again, we're going around the world. We got a special guest, and you brought him on.
Yes.
You know people, baby.
I try, but I'm very excited about this one.
Me
So
too.
we have Robby Barbaro with us. Robby, hello.
I'm so glad to be here, guys. Like, we're going to have a lot of fun today. I love the idea behind this show. I can't wait to come back when you guys get a million downloads per episode. This is going to be amazing. Like you guys are just, it's just the beginning. What episode is this?
It's double digits. It's probably about 15.
Yeah,
or
it
16.
is double digits.
Because I'm like, oh, wow, this started like just recently. Like, I'm just.
It's like if you binge watch a sitcom, you go back to the first season and it's like, well, that's kind of there, but it's not quite there yet. So we're finding our stride. So when we'll have you back. And so you're going to build us up. So we appreciate it.
I want to be a regular on the show.
And Robby, you guys, if you didn't know, he is a author of a best-selling book called Mastering Diabetes Method.
That's right. Does anybody see the video of this or just the audio?
Honestly, some people do because I think they will be in video.
We are taking video for a YouTube. Kind of use we're on the YouTube. We got the diabetes.
Absolutely.
We all said that. But yes, we'll plug your book. Yes. Absolutely.
Look,
it's a New York Times bestseller, baby.
Has any questions, but they want to learn more about what we talk about today, the book is going to be the place to go. But we'll try and answer as much as we can in today's show.
Well, how about your diagnosis story? We like to ask our guests that to tell you how you got in this world that we are all in, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely. So I was 12 years old and I was thirsty all the time. I was hungry all the time. I was going to the bathroom all the time. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, you know what? I think I have diabetes just like Steve. So Steve's my older brother. I have two older brothers. He's the middle one. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 9 years prior to me. So I was familiar with the condition. I knew all about it. I remember when he went to the hospital and I was so kind and generous to bring the PlayStation to him, trying to be a nice brother.
You are a good
so
brother.
I remember all that. And hey, I do my best. So I said, Mom, I think this is a problem. And she's like, no, don't be silly. You don't have diabetes. I'm like, okay. So I kept on going on with life. And eventually my parents were out of town. I was living in Minnesota at the time. And they were out of town in Florida looking for homes because we were going to move to Florida. And my mom calls to check in and she says, hey, how are things going? I said, Mom, I couldn't sleep last night. I was cramping all night. She said, okay, go upstairs, use your brother's blood glucose meter and test yourself. And I said, okay, sure, I'll do that. So I did. And I was well over 400. And everybody listening to the show, I don't need to describe what that means because this is a type 1 diabetes show. So that's a problem.
It's type 2 too.
And my brother's, a lot of type 2s. Okay. So, and look, let me say it this way. Everybody listening to this show knows about blood glucose readings. Okay. This isn't just like a general health podcast. So if I tell you I'm 400, you guys are like, yeah, that's a problem. That's milligrams per deciliter. If it wasn't, that'd be even a bigger problem, but nonetheless, my brother said right then and there, yeah, you have type 1 diabetes, pack your bag. You're going to be in the hospital for a few nights. So we went to the general doctor and they ran some tests. I don't know exactly what tests they ran. You know, I'd actually be curious to go and dig up those numbers, see what they did run.
Yeah.
But the doctor came back. He said, yeah, you have type 1 diabetes. Then that was the first time I'd seen my brother cry. He's like, oh, I'm just so sorry. You have to deal with this, you know. And then we drove to the hospital. And I stayed there for, I think it was just one night, maybe two. I can't remember exactly. But I remember my parents, they came back the next day. And I remember my dad just saying, look, this is an inconvenience. You know, everything you want in life can still become true and everything's going to be fine. So that was really the way my parents raised us. And I benefited from the fact that I was the second kid to have type 1 diabetes. My parents had already gone through, you know, all that you have to go through as a parent of a type 1. So obviously their confidence and ability in instilling confidence in me was a heck of a lot stronger than might be the case in other situations. So I proceed with following the standard American diet. And, you know, at that time, we lived in St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is, you know, a couple hours away from Rochester. So I went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and I had a whole team there. I had an endocrinologist, a nutritionist, a psychologist. The whole visit there was like a multi-day event.
Yeah.
And, they did the best they could and to help me out. And in hindsight, there's a lot of missed opportunity. I think when a person is diagnosed with any type of diabetes, it's actually a great opportunity to be a wake-up call to be like, okay, wow, like let's talk about what we can do now to maximize your health and reduce your risk of complications that are associated with living with any form of diabetes. And that wasn't the case. I mean, I was 12 years old at the time, and their thought process was more like, hey, we want you to just be normal. We want you to know that you can still eat just like you normally do. You can still eat with your friends, just have to learn how to dose insulin properly. I mean, fair enough. I get where that energy is coming from, but I respectfully disagree. I think it's a time to have a wake-up call and be like, you know what? Hey, there's some stuff happening with the standard American diet and there's ingredients that are included that certainly not going to make you more insulin sensitive. And so the conversation around insulin sensitivity, I just think it's missing. It's definitely growing more and more in all diabetes communities.
Yeah.
But it's an important one. It's an essential one. And at Mastering Diabetes, that's what we do. We teach people how to reverse insulin resistance. And that means we eliminate prediabetes because you caught it early enough. That's pretty much reversible, like almost 100% of cases. There'd be some rare situation that not. Type 2 diabetes, depending on how long you've had it, depending on what your C-peptide level is, that's going to indicate whether or not you can completely reverse type 2 or not. But vast majority of cases, absolutely reversible.
So Dobie has type 2.
Okay, let's talk about it. How long have you had type 2?
I got diagnosed in June of 2011. And as a stand-up comedian, my diet was horrible. Talk about the American standard diet. That would be good.
Yeah.
I wasn't even that. And the heaviest thing I lift is my microphone, and I drive 8 hours. So exercise 0 on a scale of 1 to 10, diet -0 on a scale of 1 to 10. So I've been dealing with it. I got off insulin in about 2.5 months.
Okay.
So I exercised, changed my whole diet, my whole life around. And then, like an idiot, I thought, I'm cured now. I really haven't done anything with it. So until this podcast came along, I don't know I haven't taken my A1C or blood sugar in years.
Okay. So are you using diabetes medications right now?
I am not.
Okay.
They wanted to put me on metformin. I did not. I had
No.
insulin.
Okay. Are you using like blood pressure medications or anything?
No, I am not.
You're medication free.
Medication free.
Let's keep it that way. So then, let's go. Like, let's do this. Get your A1C tested. Let's get you to 5.6% or below. Let's maintain that for a year, and let's call you non-diabetic.
That's exactly what I like. I've been called a lot of things. That's one thing I would enjoy being called.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the input. Now, you're talking a little bit about pre-diabetes, and I think I have a good friend. Actually, I'm recording this podcast at his house right now. He is pre-diabetic. How would you tell people that are in that, because there's millions of them, what are some tips they could do to avoid it?
Yeah, there's over 80 million of them in the U.S. alone.
80 million, is that all?
And a majority of them don't even know they have it.
I want a quarter from each of those people.
Hey, man, that'd be great. So the message to somebody who's been diagnosed with pre-diabetes is to be like, this is a huge blessing. This is a huge blessing. The fact that you now know, all right,
Yeah.
you're not in the dark like majority of people living with pre-diabetes. And now you have an opportunity to become the healthiest you've ever been. You're catching it early enough. You can completely eliminate it and then just really turn things around. It's not about managing pre-diabetes. It's not about getting better. It's about completely transforming your health and being in a position where you gain so much confidence that you now are like, wow, because of this diagnosis, it led me to learn new information. I picked up a copy of Mastering Diabetes. I learned the science. I looked into this. And now I actually have the confidence to reduce my risk of developing the number one cause of death in the world, which is heart disease. That's powerful. When you're like, you start to have this new perspective of, wait, my health, and especially these major chronic diseases, are primarily in my control. I can reduce my risk of developing cancer. Wouldn't that be powerful? I mean, that's the big one that everybody's scared of.
Right.
Chronic kidney disease, I can objectively improve my health to a point where my chance of developing kidney disease is extremely small. That's great. High blood pressure. There are more people living with high blood pressure than living with type 2 diabetes. And most people don't know that and they don't talk about it. And blood pressure can be reversed or improved, lowered in days. We see this happen at our retreats. We have 4-day retreats and we bring a physician with us at the retreat, and people with blood pressure are reducing their medications in just 4 days. So that one, like really you can take control of. High cholesterol, high triglycerides, your risk of
Mm-hmm.
developing fatty liver disease, your risk of developing Alzheimer's, your risk of developing neuropathy, retinopathy. All this stuff is reduced as you become more insulin sensitive and eat a nutrient dense diet.
I just think all those things you mentioned could be an individual episode of what we're doing. Those are so deep subjects that you brought up right there. So interesting. Thank you for
Yeah.
I
going deeper in
mean,
that. Go ahead.
well, Robbie was the reason I went plant-based. I think I told you this when I talked the first time. I was like, I saw it like 2 years prior and I was like, I can't even eat an apple right now. I was like, there's no way like I can eat a piece of fruit. And then I was like, you know what? It's COVID. Like, what does it matter now? I might as well just try it. And then it worked and it like completely flipped everything.
Yeah,
And
Sammy. I mean, tell me, remind me, like what has happened? What?
okay, so I've actually had a tough time actually like the last month, which I think is just because my stress and hormones have like caused like a little higher spikes and whatnot. But I've been trying to like wrap it together again. But yeah, I was really insulin resistant. I was on metformin. Nothing was working. I ate like no fruit. I was just, low carb diet. Um, Worked out nonstop. Couldn't figure it out though. Like I'd eat cheese and my blood sugar was going high. And we were like, what? And then I tried the Mastering Diabetes method, which is the whole food plant-based, low fat, and it was like night and day. And I was like, how the heck am I eating sweet potatoes and beans? Like it was like the best thing ever. I tell Dobie, I'm like, I live on fruit.
So,
Dobie's like,
I
wow.
love a
so
woman
what
that eats
happened
beans, Sammy.
what happened to your insulin sensitivity? Like, what was the total
Oh,
carbohydrate?
it was crazy. It literally increased. Like I went from like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 to like 1 to 30, 1 to
Yeah.
35.
Okay. All right. That's typical. And so then what happened to your basal rate?
Oh, it decreased in half. Like, I'm only
Exactly.
on 12 units right now of my 24-hour.
Right. Okay. And how many carbohydrates were you consuming before doing the Mastering Diabetes method?
Like, at most 50.
Okay. So we're talking 50 grams of carbohydrate per day.
Yeah,
And then how many carbohydrates now?
like 150
Per day.
to 200. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a dramatic increase while your
Oh, yeah.
insulin needs went down. And
Yeah.
so like Sam, you're a great example here and we see this all day every day. The name of the game is to reverse insulin resistance. And anybody living with insulin dependent diabetes can test this hypothesis in a very short period of time in a very objective manner. So, if you're not injecting insulin, then the naysayers are going to argue, oh well, your pancreas probably just secreted more insulin, you're exhausting your pancreas and you're going to cause problems. Like I get this stuff on TikTok and Instagram all day every day. But let's just take that to the side now because there's a lot of people listening to this who do have type 1 and are using insulin. So if you're like, oh man, I don't know, like it just doesn't make sense, like I don't think it's going to work for me, like I'm different, all you have to do is just and it might seem like a lot of work in the beginning, but this exercise of just doing it will pay dividends for the rest of your life. Just do the actions, follow our recipes, follow the meal plan in the book, and simply commit to having no more than 30 grams of total fat for 21 days in a row. Do that one commitment and watch as you will just be blown away. Like you can't even fathom what's going to happen to you. You can't even fathom like, wow. And so if you're at a 5-to-1 ratio and you try to have a meal of 25 grams of carbohydrate, so you have a snack, 25 grams of carbohydrate. So you would need 5 units. Okay. Yeah. And then imagine this is literally what's going to happen. You just said 30-to-1, Sammy. I'm injecting at 30-to-1 to 80-to-1, depending on the time of day and the activity. Imagine then you're now going to have that same 25 grams of carbohydrate snack, and you're going to inject 1 unit of insulin, and you're going to see your blood glucose essentially flatline. It'll go up a little bit.
Yeah, and then
it'll go up to like 140-ish. And so what I love to talk about, especially in a show like this, the opportunity, is to talk about the nuances and the details. And the way that happens, if you're living with type 1 diabetes, oftentimes this is not your fault, but a lot of people have not been taught the basics. I see this over and over and over in our coaching program. So fundamental number 1 is nobody ever taught you how long you have to wait for the insulin to work. And I was fortunate enough, again, going to the Mayo Clinic, I did have some fairly high quality education.
Totally.
And I knew from the beginning, from the very beginning of having diabetes, that when you inject insulin, it takes about 15 minutes to work. It's literally doing close to nothing. So a big mistake that happens is people are like, oh, I'm going to try this high carb thing. And then they're like, in the first few days or so, which number one, you haven't become insulin sensitive in the first few days. Let's start there. Yeah. And number two, you don't know about insulin timing. So you inject your insulin, you eat right away, and you shoot to 400. And you're like, these guys
you're like,
these guys are cartoons. Like, what are they talking about? It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I just went to 400. Like, apples are terrible. And it's just like, it's a combination of errors in the beginning. It's number one, the insulin timing. And number two, we got to ease into this. And that's why we have 2 different meal plans in our book to help you ease into it. But nonetheless, just imagine this vision of you inject 1 unit of insulin, you eat 25 grams of carbohydrate, you see the predictability. You become there's a lot of pride and joy and confidence in being like, wow, like I know I'm going to eat this and it's going to rise to like 140, 150, and it's going to come down. Like
totally.
It changes your entire life.
It really, I said that to Dobie when I first was explaining. I was like, I literally, this like I was in a really not healthy state before, and I was doing everything. I was checking my blood sugars, giving my insulin, counting my, and it was like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Whereas and now, to be honest, even, because I think the number one thing too is people think you need a certain amount of protein, oh, I have to, eat this amount of protein because I'm not getting enough then, or I can't go plant-based because I'm not getting enough fat and nutrients. I always hear that one. I don't get enough nutrients. I'm like, plants are literally the most nutrient dense food, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, these are valid questions. People are concerned. And again, at Mastering Diabetes, we have a whole coaching team. That's what our whole operation is about coaching. And it's always about empowering and educating people. So any one of those questions you just brought up, I like to walk people through getting the answers on their own. Okay, so you're concerned about protein. Let's look and figure out how much protein do you need? What is the agreed upon number there? And that number, the number that is agreed upon, is very safe. It's very conservative. So we establish that. Okay, you've educated yourself. You're confident in that. And then we ask, okay, I'm going to start entering the foods that are on the Mastering Diabetes program. I'm going to enter them into nutrition software. Then I'm going to ask myself, did I get enough? And when you see, oh, wow, I did. And then, okay, what nutrients are you concerned about? And there are maybe, you'll see when you enter your nutrition your food into the software, you're like, wow, like I'm meeting all these things. I'm exceeding these. And then there might be ones where you're like, okay, what can I do to gain confidence and ensure that I'm getting what I need? Okay, so if you want to meet your selenium needs, okay, you're going to have some Brazil nuts here or there, or some specific beans. Like there's some specific foods you can have. Oh, I want to meet my iodine requirement. Okay, let's include some nori in your diet. Let's include some dulse. Okay, I really want to make sure I get that 1,000 milligrams of calcium. I really want to hit that number. Okay, let's do it. Let's put in some figs in there. Let's put in some, whether it's the soy milk or the whatever it is. Like the thing I just want to share with everybody here is like, whatever concern you have, you can objectively address through data. I'm not here to tell people, oh, just make changes because Robby said so or Sammy said so. Oh, it worked for them, it should work for me. Like, gain knowledge, look into the research, be objective, be scientific about this. And that's really what we're all about.
So for Dobie, example, if we had you, test this out, what would be Robby, a simple, easy meal for Dobie to make for breakfast?
Okay.
Easy on the go, and it doesn't feel like it's changing so drastically.
Yeah. What do you eat right now for breakfast?
Whole wheat Cocoa Puffs and butter out of the stick. No, I'm kidding. I'm trying to shock people. It's funny because my life and my job, it's so unstable that I don't have a pattern, and I'm somewhere else all the time, and I'm on the road. So sometimes it's really tough. I try to eat fruits and vegetables. I try to eat protein. I try not to eat breads, but sometimes I'll get an Egg McMuffin. I'll admit it. Drive through. So I need major improvement, but that's why we want to educate not only listeners, but me too. So if we can all be examples, that's the thing. Now, what do you eat? I'll put it back on you after all these years. What is your diet?
I'm happy to answer that question. And if you ever want to see it, you can just go on my Instagram because I post pretty much every meal every day. So
I will.
It's my personal one, Mindful Diabetic Robby.
Yes.
But the answer is for breakfast, Dobie, I eat fruit. I eat whatever fruit's in season, whatever fruit I love, and I eat a little bit of greens. That's my
How much fruit do you eat, Robbie? Like
So
for a serving
yeah,
of
so
breakfast?
let me basically we ran a webinar at Mastering Diabetes where we taught everybody about calorie density. It's a very, very important point, and it's life-changing when it really clicks in your head. And so the principle of calorie density is all about basically the amount of energy you have in any given weight of food. It's a constant. Okay, so it doesn't matter the volume of food you ate, the calorie density is always the same. So it doesn't matter how much arugula I have versus oil. Oil is still over 50 times more calorie dense than eating arugula. Okay, so there's a big magnitude of difference across the board. So we ran this webinar and we taught everybody the principles of calorie density, and this is how you can eat more food and weigh less. This is how you become satiated and satisfied by learning how to eat in larger volumes of food. So what I keep on seeing these notifications coming up. I don't know
Robert, we don't want to interrupt you. We got to take a break soon. We don't want to interrupt you, but we do have to take a quick break. We'll come right back with you.
All right, let's take a break.
Well, okay. Well, Robbie is here. Sammy's here. I'm Dobie. Stay with lots more interesting stuff after the break. We'll be right back. This is Just My Type, the diabetes podcast.
My bad.
I'm sorry about that.
The thing is, no, it's no worries. The only I have you guys are very small on my screen, and the reason I do that is intentionally. So I'm actually looking into the lens of the camera, and so the notification would cover the screen. I'm like, so I had to dismiss it.
I'll take the blame on that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're back. We're back. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're the host.
You be the host. Okay.
It's okay, Rob. I'll take the day off. You and Sammy can run it. I'll just relax and hear interesting information about diabetes. It's a podcast.
You're the best.
It's not real radio. I'm Chico. You're
the
man.
best thing. You're the best thing that ever happened to this podcast. I love you.
As you were saying, Robbie.
Yeah, we're talking about calorie density, and the reason I'm explaining this point is because of what we did that show. We went through an exercise of calculating how many pounds of edible food do I consume per day? Does Cyrus consume per day? And at the time, our director of nutrition at the time was Tara Kemp, and she also analyzed her food intake. And we had pictures and we talked about it, so it was super fun. And so a typical person eats somewhere between 3 to 5 pounds of food per day. And you're going to eat about that same amount of food by weight, no matter the calorie density. And that's a huge point. Again, I don't have enough time to cover the whole thing about calorie density in this short podcast. You should Google it, read about it in our book.
We'll have you back, Robbie.
But the point, okay, perfect. So in this case, so when you're eating oils, when you're eating high fat foods, processed foods, because the calorie density is so high and you're going to eat the same volume, that's why you consume extra calories, because we consume about the ssame weight. So anyways, when you're following our program, so it turned out that Tara ate 8 pounds of food in a day. Cyrus ate, I think it was roughly 10, and I ate 13 pounds of edible food per day. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. That's kind of ludicrous, actually.
I have that, but I just, I have to go to the bathroom a lot.
Right, for sure. But see, here's the thing. So the key point is that volume of food is very deceptive. You're like, wow, that's a ton of food. But really what it is, it's a ton of water and it's a ton of fiber. So so you guys, people, it's not abnormal for somebody to drink a liter of water. Okay. Now I'm just getting the majority of my water from whole foods. Okay. Yeah. So the water content of, let's say, romaine lettuce, for example, it's 95% water by mass. Okay. Yeah. Let's compare that to nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are roughly 1 to 3% water. Okay. So I'm consuming a high water content, high fiber diet. And just to throw this in here real quick, the fiber requirements are quite low for men and women. Over 90% of the population does not meet the small recommended amount of fiber to consume per day. Yet everybody's out here chasing protein. But Dolby's not saying in the morning, I eat fiber. He's saying I eat protein. So it's a mentality that's been, through good marketing, has reached everybody. And So we have over 90% of people who are fiber deficient by fact. And I would love to know somebody, maybe they can comment on Instagram, maybe they can tag us or something.
Yeah.
Show me the person you met that got diagnosed with a protein deficiency. I'd love to, like, how many, we have this funny meme we put up on like the protein deficiency wing of the hospital. It's empty. It's empty. Like protein deficiency, it's a non-issue. So anyways, we go back to this volume of food.
Yeah.
I eat a large volume of food, a bunch of water, a bunch of fiber, and a ton of nutrients. And it looks like a lot.
I have a question really quick. What's your take on like protein powder?
Okay, so protein powder, listen, there's a lot of evidence. If you're into evidence-based research, if you're into evidence-based science, medicine, you'll look at the research and you'll find if somebody is looking to be a serious athlete, if you're looking to perform at a very high level, there are advantages to increasing your protein consumption for athletic performance.
Yes.
That is clear. When we're talking about health, what do we need to do to reverse type 2 diabetes? What do we need to do to lower the risk of, let's say, kidney disease or reverse chronic kidney disease, which we've seen happen? Stage 3 kidney disease, woman came to our program, completely reversed it. In that case, overall health, we're going to shift towards what we like to call low protein, like an intentionally lower protein consumption for health. So again, we go back to, objectivity and answering these questions through facts. If somebody is worried, I'm not getting enough protein, I'm not meeting my essential amino acids requirements, the recommendation is enter your food into nutrition logging software. Is that true or is that not true? If for whatever reason you're struggling to eat enough calories and you can't get those foods, then sure, go ahead. Let's use a protein. I'm not against it. Not like it's the worst thing ever, but I like to bring in the principles and the teaching points of like, okay, why are you doing that? Is it this protein culture that's sort of gotten to you? Like, instead of thinking about protein, let's think about fiber. Like, I really like making that switch and looking at food and not being like, oh, wait, how much protein's in this? I'd much rather you ask how much fiber's in it.
So I think the medical term would be poop like a goose. I think that's what it is.
There you go.
Go see it like a 9-iron through wet sand, like a Canadian quarter through a vending machine.
So Adobe, like when you're traveling, the way to have a great breakfast is to go to the grocery store and just stock up on simple, convenient foods. So foods that you could buy that are immediately available, ready to eat, include oranges, include grapes.
Yes.
Oftentimes bananas are ripe enough to eat. Okay. Correct. They're going to have berries. Berries are ripe enough to go. I'm trying to think of other fruits. You could go to the frozen section. So frozen mango and just defrost it is fantastic.
What about yogurt? Yogurt with the fruit in the bottom.
The problem with this is a great question. I'm so happy to talk to you.
That's why we're here, Robby.
The problem with the yogurt is it's very high in fat.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Gotcha. That is a problem.
And so this is the connection where if people realize that it's dietary fat, excess dietary fat. I don't care if it comes from an avocado. I don't care if it comes from nuts and seeds. I don't care if it comes from edamame, the most whole intact form of soy. Excess dietary fat will inhibit insulin action. And every type 1 listening to this show can prove that to themselves beyond any shadow of any doubt.
I mean, I can. I started upping again like normal fat when I was out because I was like, it was hard at times. And I'm definitely like a little more insulin resistant. And I'm
no question. You see it. I mean, as a type 1, we see it.
Yeah.
So Dobie, for you, so that's where we're trying to make this connection at Mastering Diabetes with all forms of diabetes. We're connected under one goal: to become as insulin sensitive as possible. So your high blood glucose readings are just a symptom. The actual disease is insulin resistance. And so, I mean, look, you haven't tested for a long time. So for all we know, you're non-diabetic. I mean, you've made health improvements. But
I know, Dobie, I wish you had him you could test.
Yeah.
We are just starting our podcast, our journey. We're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do you have a blood glucose meter? At home?
At this point, I do not. I will get one soon, and I'm going to give you
Yeah.
credit, Robbie. I'm going to give you
I'll
credit,
send you
Sammy,
one, Dobie.
and Elizabeth too, who's not even diabetic. Our producer said we're going to get you.
I'll send
because
you one.
I just haven't pricked my finger enough lately in my life, and I need
Yeah.
some blood to ooze out of my person.
Okay, Dobie, do you have a doctor you're in regular communication with?
I do not have a doctor right now because I'm a self-employed person on the 100% deductible insurance plan. That's another whole topic in America. I do not have health insurance right now.
That is a whole nother topic. Boy,
Yes, it
sure
is.
Okay.
Just being honest.
All right. Well, look, any way I can support you. Sammy here, Elizabeth's here. Like, you got this, man.
This is not for me, and I appreciate that. This is for the listeners. I am the guinea pig, so it's like, well, if Dobie's that bad, I'm not that bad. So I will be willing to be the the guinea pig. So to get people back to health, I will take the bullet. I'll get my blood glucose sugar measured and get better, courtesy of your guys' help. And I thank you for it.
Well, Robbie, thank you so much for coming on and joining us and sharing all about the Mastering Diabetes and just shedding light on, the new healthier approach dealing with diabetes.
Well, thank you for
Sammy,
having
what's our
me.
question of the pod?
Oh, question of the pod. Okay, actually, do you have a question that you want to ask people, Robbie?
I get to ask them a question.
Yes, if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your question?
My question is, I want to know how many grams of fat they ate yesterday.
Great. So question of the pod, how many grams of fat did you eat yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, share the answer and tag us all on social media.
Yeah. So you can find Robbie at Mindful Diabetic Robbie's as personal, and then Mastering Diabetes. And you can share, rate, review, and subscribe too. And also comment to us at JustMyTypePod _ on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Facebook at JustMyTypePod. And our hashtag JustMyTypePod. But again, you can find Robbie at Mindful Diabetic Robbie and Mastering Diabetes.
Robbie, you were a fantastic guest.
much.
I will purchase that book, and the check will not bounce myself. Could give it to my friend.
Dobie,
Yeah,
yes.
this is great. We appreciate you. We always appreciate you listening. Sammy put the cherry on the sundae. We're running a little long today. What is it?
C'est la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.